Zaccheaus, Zaccheaus, Zaccheaus. What a desperate man. Hi, welcome to this episode of the book of Luke. This episode we are looking at the book of Luke chapter 19. In the book of Luke chapter 19, Zaccheaus, a taxed man, quite rich, was desperate to see Jesus. But the crowd was on his way because he was a short man. The Bible said he went ahead and climbed the ceiling so he could see Jesus. And when Jesus got to that spot, the Bible said he looked up and said to Zaccheaus, "Hurry down, today is my day to be a guest in your home." Some other version will say, "Today salvation has come to your house." Zaccheaus came down from the tree and thanked Jesus in his hand. We also about the man who descended from a royal house and needed to go on a long trip back to the headquarters to get authorization for his rule. And then he called his 10 servants and gave them each a sum of money and instructed them to operate with it until he returned. The citizens there hated him, so they sent a commission with a signed petition to oppose his rule. "We don't want this man to rule us." When he came back bringing the authorization of his rule, he called those 10 servants to whom he gave the money to find out how they are done. The first said, "Master, I doubled your money." He said, "Good servant, great work, because you have been trustworthy in this small job. I'm making you governor of 10 towns. Can you see? Wow!" So the second said, "Master, 50% profit on your money." He said, "Well done, I'm putting you in charge of 5 towns. The next servant said, "Master, here's your money savings, and I kept it hidden in the cellar. To tell you the truth, I was a little afraid. I know you have high standards and hate sloppiness and don't suffer fools gladly." He said, "You are right that I don't suffer fools gladly, and you have acted the fool. Why didn't you at least invest the money in securities so I could have gotten a little interest on it?" Then he said to those standing there, "Take the money from him and give it to the servant who doubled my stake." They said, "But master, he already has doubled." He said, "That is what I mean. Risk your life and get more than you ever dream of. Play it safe and end up holding the bag."
So you just triumphant entry here. The Bible said that Jesus gave them instruction to go and untie a coat, and he told them that if anybody asks you why you're untying, just tell them that the master needs it. And actually they were asked, and they told them the master needs it. So they brought the coat to Jesus. They put their coat on it. People put palm tree on the floor. He wrote on it, and they were shouting, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, Hosanna in the highest, and all is well in heaven." The Pharisees were like, "Oh, can't you just tell your disciples to just keep quiet? They are making noise." And he said, "If I tell them to keep quiet, tongues will begin to shout praises. Tongues will begin to shout praises." And so when he went into the temple, he saw that they were buying and selling them. The Bible said he overturned the table of the money changers, and he said, "My house is a house of prayer. You cannot turn it to a den of thieves." And from then on, he taught each day in the temple. The high priest, religion scholars, and the leaders of the people were trying their best to find a way to get rid of him. But with the people hanging on every word he spoke, they couldn't come up with anything. Why they could not come up with anything was because it was not yet his time. When it's time, Judas Iscariot willingly volunteered himself because he was the one that was written to bring Jesus down. So I believe that when it is time, it is your time. Zaccheaus, one of the things we can learn from here is desperation, hunger. See, when it is your time for visitation, heaven will stir up dissatisfaction in you, discontentment in you. You'll be so desperate and you'll be willing to do anything. Zaccheaus had excuses. Like many of us, we have excuses. We are full of excuses. The things God asks us to do, we don't do them. And some of these excuses seems like they are actually valid. For Zaccheaus, he didn't create himself. God made him, and he had a short stature. God made him, and he wasn't tall, and so because he wasn't tall, he couldn't see Jesus. But he said, "I will go extra mile. I will stretch. I will build capacity. I will stretch. I will go extra mile." He went extra mile. He climbed a tree. Do you know the effort it takes to climb a tree? After Jesus finally saw him there, the Bible said he hurried down. He climbed the tree, and right there, What was Jesus doing? Looking up. I thought he was going. You will just, if you're going, you will look to your front. You will look forward. You will be focused on where you're going. But Jesus looked up. That means if Zaccheaus had not stretched himself to be on that tree that day, and Jesus looked up, it will still be his day. But because he was not there to stretch himself, to build capacity, to go beyond his limitations and weaknesses, Jesus would have still looked up at that tree and he would still not find him, and that day wouldn't have been his day, or he would have missed his hour. So Zaccheaus actually stretched himself, and he reaped the reward of stretching himself. Compare with Zaccheaus. Comparing Zaccheaus and the rich official that came in the previous chapter. Zaccheaus said, I am ready. Even if I am caught cheating, I will pay 4 times the damage. But this other man, he wasn't even ready. Zaccheaus said, I give to the poor. I give half of my income to the poor. And if I am caught cheating, I will pay 4 times the damages. The other official, go and sell what you have and come back. And after you have given to the poor, come back and follow me. He couldn't. But this one says, I give half of my income to poor, and even if I am caught cheating, cheating was a thing for tax collector. So Zaccheaus said, even if I'm caught cheating, I would pay back in 4 times. Your hunger can be measured by your level of desperation. It takes a desperate man to see Jesus. It takes a desperate man to see Jesus. Your hunger draws God's attention to you. When you see Jesus, we will know. It will show if you have seen Jesus. It will show if you have seen Jesus. But it takes a desperate man to see Jesus. Every one of them that Jesus touched, that touched Jesus, that had an encounter with him, they all stretched themselves. They all were desperate. Zaccheaus was desperate. It takes a desperate man to see Jesus. And when you see him, we will know. When Zaccheaus saw Jesus, he said, come down. Today salvation has come to your house. God doesn't reckon with excuses when it comes to maximizing the gift he gave to you. Fear wouldn't even spare you because of fear. Look at the tax master. The master that gave his servants 50% profit. That gave them money to make business with, or to do business with. They were saying, the one said, I have done business with this money and this is what I was able to make. He said, be a governor over 10 towns. The other one said, I've done business with it. This is what I was able to make. He said, that's good, 5 towns. But the other one came and said, I could not do it. I just invest your money because I was afraid, and tell you the truth, I was a little afraid. I know you have high standard and it. The master was like, right? And I don't, that I don't suffer fools gladly, and you acted fool. He had a reason. I was afraid. Even fear won't be the reason why God will spare you. You will give account of everything, every gift, every access, every potential that God has locked up on your inside. So you must deploy them rightly. Trust God to deploy these things, because God does not reckon with excuses. If we are to give excuse, everybody have excuse. Everybody have excuse. Zaccheaus still did not allow his height to be an excuse. He ran up to the small tree. The other two that were given money, they didn't allow any excuse. But the third one said, I'm afraid. I know you have high standard. What has that got to do with what your master gave to you? 10 God was only giving 1, because if they give him 10, imagine that they gave him 10, he would have buried it and wasted it just like that. God will always give you according to your capacity. There's nothing God is asking you to do now that he doesn't. He has not wired the capacity to do it inside of you. Faith challenge today. Search out the gift that God gave you and you have left dormant, and begin to deploy them towards the propagation of the gospel. Thank you for listening to this episode.